The cutting season, this book very much was born out of my own personal emotional reaction to where we are. When I first, I don't know how many people know about the background of this book, but the book takes place on a plantation in Louisiana. And it is one of these historical tourism sites. And I went to a wedding at one of these places in 2004. The place is called Oak Alley Plantation in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And when I knew the wedding was on a plantation because I got the invitation that said the Oak Alley Plantation. I just assumed it was a description of the decor, or, you know, we're in the South. I mean, you throw the name plantation on anything. I mean, there's subdivisions with the name plantation in them. I just didn't think anything of it. I didn't know we were going to what had been a working sugarcane plantation. And so when we rode out, we were bussed into this wedding because it was outside of New Orleans. So we were riding through basically rural Louisiana poverty, and frankly, rural black Louisiana poverty. And then all of a sudden, these incredible columns shot up out of nowhere, and I was just so blown away by the beauty of what I was looking at. And again, the contradiction of holding that against the poverty that I had just driven through, that was created by these very columns that I was standing at and about to go to a party in. I was so overwhelmed by standing on the grounds of a plantation, which I would never, ever, ever have done if I had not been invited to this wedding. When we all got off the bus, I burst into tears. I was just so stirred up, and my husband and I said a prayer before we went through to the actual wedding itself. Oak Alley at the time, okay, so Oak Alley Plantation has a bed and breakfast, a restaurant. They bottle their own mint syrup. They have an ice cream shop, a gift shop, and basically it's just a way to spend a Saturday. When I went there were no slave cabins. They had torn them all down. And in its place, they had a big plaque that listed every slave that had ever lived there, been owned there, worked there, and what they cost. And you had to walk by that to get to the shrine. You had to walk by that to get to the champagne. And the juxtaposition of these two things was a lot to hold. And the optimist in me thought, well, maybe the point of us all being here tonight, it was an interracial couple that was getting married. I'm a part of an interracial marriage. I thought, well, maybe that's what tonight is. It's 2004. I am free as can be. I'm here in, you know, my $300 dress. Maybe tonight is about an act of healing. And my husband and I waited all night for the couple to acknowledge where we were. This black family marrying this white family. I waited for the toast. I waited for somebody to make a speech, something. And nothing happened. They didn't jump a broom. There was no reference to where we were. So that history had been turned into a beautiful backdrop and robbed of any kind of deeper meaning. And it made me start to ask questions about what in the world do we do with this history as we go forward? How do we hold and honor it? But then where are the points where our history gets ahead of us and holds us back? All this kind of stuff. I knew I was going to write about this place. And I went back in 2009. Barack Obama had been elected. Let me actually rewind to 2008, to when I started, the summer of 2008, when I understood that this man was going to be the nominee. And then I kind of knew this man was about to be president. I actually started to feel an incredible sense of panic. That was illogical, that I felt as if every story that I'd ever been told about what I understood to be the limit of being of color in America was about to be disrupted, and that I was going to be in my country without a comfortable story, without that comfortable story of this is what it means to be black in America. I've been living with this story. My parents told me it, my grandparents told me it. This is the box of being black in America. And it was about to be knocked down. And we were all going to walk into a new country without these clear roles of oppressed and oppressor. And it scared, frankly, the shit out of me. In a way, again, that was not, it was pure emotion. So when I went back to Oak Alley in 2009, I stayed in one of the cottages that they rent out for the bed and breakfast, and I sat one night on the front porch. To hold those two things together kind of blew my mind. To hold sitting on a slave plantation, knowing that there was a black man in the White House, absolutely blew my mind. I felt tremendous gratitude, not only for the souls that had worked on that very plantation, and I paused to say my own thank yous. I felt tremendous pride in a race of people to make that leap. And it didn't come quick, but it came through so much strife that it is as if it happened at lightning speed. Because to go from shackles to what we just saw on January 21st, last month, it was just mind-boggling for me to hold the contradiction. And I felt it also gave me a sense of peace. And I thought that one of the things that these historical tourism sites are missing is an understanding that you don't have to just go there and talk about the china and the curtains in the main house. And they have shied away from, not all of them, but a lot of them have shied away from talking about the gravity of owning people. And they just talk about the fanciness of the beautiful setting. And in fact, Oak Alley has a little bit of a problem with my book. They have not welcomed it. And I have not been in an emotional space to offer something to them. I did a book event at Tulane, and there was a group of black women who were a part of a book. They started a book club because of this book. And they said, we're going to Oak Alley on Saturday. What should we expect? And I said, I really don't know. I don't know what you're going to find there. And they were taking their children, and each of them had said that they would never have spent a Saturday on a plantation as a recreation, but that it was deeply healing for them. And I think what some of the Oak Alleys of the world are missing is that there is a possibility of it being like the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. There's a possibility that it serves a purpose beyond the pretty setting. And they're missing an opportunity to allow space for that and to allow the contradiction without trying to whitewash over everything really fast. It's okay. It's okay to admit kind of where we came from and where we are. And part of what allows me to be okay with where we were is the highly mitigating factor of Barack Obama in the White House, which is not a panacea, which is not a post-racial anything, but it is something. It is something. So I'm going to read a little bit from the book. I'm going to read something from the first chapter. So Karen left Belle Vie when she was young. Well, college. And you had this incredible shame about being the daughter of a plantation cook, and was convinced that she would never live her life like that. She was going to get out. She got to New Orleans. And I'm going to read just a paragraph about what it was to come home. And what drove her home was both the breakup of a relationship with Katrina that kind of washed away everything that she had in New Orleans, and there was no real other place to go but back to Belle Vie. She'd prepared herself to hate the place on sight, pointedly refusing to be courted by a pretty picture or its pretense of antebellum grace. And she made herself a single promise: she would not forget her family's generations of sweat here, how trapped she'd felt by that very legacy, growing up in the shade of these trees. Her original contract with the plantation was for 1 year. The job paid well and provided a roof over her head. The plan was to sit out for a few months, to stow away in a familiar place until she could figure out what she wanted to do next, what she wanted for her life and for her daughter. It was only supposed to be for 1 year. But the place got a hold of her from that first day, the first hour even, and it surprised as much as it confused her to discover that she did not, after all these years, hate the plantation at all. That she could not hate what was now and maybe always had been her real home, the way she came into this world.